When Lu Xong ascended the throne, the Han state that Lu Yuan had built up over 6 years already possessed national strength surpassing that of the Western Jin dynasty. 6 years later, the Western Jin officially perished. However, by then, the Han army was no longer the disciplined force it once had been. When the Han troops captured Luoyang, commanders Liu Yao and Wang Mi let their soldiers plunder freely, seizing all the palace women and treasures of the Jin court and slaughtering more than 30,000 officials and members of the imperial clan. As for Emperor Lu Xong himself, he was no longer the same young, studious, and outstanding man of talent and ambition he had once been. He began to indulge in pleasure, act recklessly, neglect state affairs, favor petty men while distancing himself from virtuous ministers, and even consumed wuxia san, the most famous narcotic of ancient China. In the year 318, on August 31st, Lu Xong, who had once been a legendary hero but had become a degenerate ruler, passed away after reigning for 8 years. After his death, Crown Prince Lu Can formally ascended the throne, becoming the 4th emperor of the Han state. Lu Can had been exceptionally talented from a young age, gifted in both civil and military affairs. Yet after his accession, he followed the same path as his father, Lu Xong, indulging in wine, women, and pleasure. Jin Zhun could be described as one of the most powerful consort relatives in Chinese history. Earlier, his 2 daughters, Jin Yuiguang and Jin Yuehua, had already been made empresses, senior and right empress, respectively, by Lu Kang. Later, Jin Yuiguang had an affair with a palace guard. Enraged, Lu Xong forced her to commit suicide, but this incident did not affect Jin Zhun's position. When Lu Can took the throne, he honored Jin Yuehua as Empress Dowager and made another of Jin Zhun's daughters his empress. Another of Lu Can's favored consorts was also Jin Zhun's niece. That very night, Lu Can shared the Empress Dowager's bed. At that time, Empress Dowager Jin was only about 20 years old. Jin Zhun, though seething with resentment, endured in silence. Meanwhile, Lu Can sank deeper into indulgence and debauchery, spending his days feasting in the inner palace, while all affairs of state and military matters were decided by his father-in-law, Jin Zhun. The depraved actions of Lu Can and Jin Zhun provoked countless upright ministers to remonstrate with them, even at the cost of their lives. Alarmed, Jin Zhun incited his 2 daughters, one the Empress Dowager and the other the Empress, to weep before Lu Can, claiming that members of the imperial clan were plotting a rebellion and that his own life was in grave danger. By then, Lu Can had long been lost in wine and lust, unable to distinguish loyalty from treachery. Hearing the tearful pleas of his beloved women, he believed their words and, in a frenzy, ordered eunuchs to lead troops to massacre his own brothers and princely relatives, slaughtering every one of them in a single day. In September 318, barely a month after Lu Can's enthronement, Jin Zhun launched a coup. Leading his personal guards, he stormed into the inner palace and killed Lu Can. All members of the Lu imperial clan in the capital were executed in the East Market. Jin Zhun even exhumed the tombs of Lu Yuan and Lu Xong, beheaded Lu Xong's corpse, and burned down the ancestral temples, a display of utter barbarity. Thus, the Han state was completely annihilated, reduced to ashes and dust. Lu Yuan, a fully Sinicized and nearly ideal leader of Xiongnu descent, was born into an elite family. Yet, why was it so difficult for him to establish a stable regime in the Central Plains, the very cradle of Chinese cultural tradition? Guanzhong, 645 BCE, a renowned philosopher and statesman of ancient China, once said, "In a plan for 1 year, the best course is to plant grain, for it yields a quick harvest. In a plan for 10 years, the best course is to plant trees, for though they take longer to grow, their rewards are greater. But for the longest and most fundamental plan, the best course is to cultivate talent, for it takes 100 years to nurture capable people, yet the return is 100-fold." Lu Yuan, along with the minority elites who later established regimes in the Central Plains, all understood the vital importance of embracing progressive traditional culture for the stability of both their nations and peoples. While consolidating their political power, they also devoted great effort to founding schools, teaching their people the Confucian values of loyalty and filial piety, as well as the moral principles and codes of conduct rooted in propriety, righteousness, integrity, and a sense of shame. Through this, they sought identification with Chinese traditional culture and a stable social order, hoping to ensure the lasting endurance of their regimes. Although these minority leaders were themselves highly Sinicized, it was no easy task to educate their own people to abandon the ancestral beliefs and old customs passed down for generations. As Guanzhong said, the cultivation of talent, that is, educating one's people, requires 100 years, haste leads to failure. This was precisely why the regimes founded by these non-Han peoples rose and fell so quickly and could not endure for long. As the influence of Confucian culture gradually spread across wider regions, it took many years before several minority regimes were finally able to establish lasting rule in the Central Plains. The Mongols, who founded the Yuan dynasty, 1271 to 1368, and the Manchus, who founded the Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1911, were two such non-Han peoples who ruled all of China for many years. To this day, under the enduring influence of Confucian culture, the moral concepts and codes of conduct centered on propriety, righteousness, integrity, and a sense of shame have become deeply ingrained, often unconsciously, in the hearts of both the Han majority and the 55 recognized minority groups. It is this deeply rooted cultural identity that has enabled more than 1 billion people of diverse ethnic backgrounds to live together in relative harmony, ensuring a comparatively stable society.